Hi, Markay here, and welcome to Unreal Engine 5.4 in the preview version. So some things might change, some things maybe will not be exactly the same in the release version, but we can already see what Epic has cooked and test some new features. And there is a lot of new features actually, so you kind of can expect some more videos in upcoming days from me. Because some of those features are quite new, and I think that people are generally not going to cover it too much, so that's my job. And one of those features that was not listed very much in the documentation, and if we go to Google and try to find something about it, there's actually nothing about it. And it's very fun feature that I think will have its place in game development. So what am I talking about? Well, you already know what I'm talking about because it's in the title. But yeah, I'm talking, of course, about texture graphs. And what is a texture graph? We can go to a plugin tab, try to find it, and this is it, texture graph. As we can see in the description, is basically an asset type and asset editor for procedural texturing. And that's it, basically. We can make our own textures in Unreal, then export it and maybe use them in our game. And how do we start, actually, with the texture graph? It has a brand new texture graph and a new category. So when we go to a texture, we can find a texture graph. I said it's a new category. It's not really a new category, just a new asset type that we can pick from the texture category. So let's pick a new texture graph. Let's call it probably TG from texture graph and test, because we usually test things out by calling them test. And let's open it and see what Epic has cooked in this new feature. Okay, so as you can see, it's a new visually new editor that has brand new nodes, that has a new palette that we can browse and see what we can pick. And one thing that I noticed immediately is that it's basically an alternative version of Material Graph, but in this version, the nodes are much more pleasant to look at. They are easier to work with, and the changes are basically instant. So let's pick a new node. Let's say color, and that color, let's call it just a color. When we bring a new node to that graph, it's automatically created as a parameter. So when we go to parameters, it's already there, but we can also make it a constant, so it's not exposed as a parameter if we wish to. But I kind of want it to be a parameter for reasons I'm gonna explain later. And let's change the color. Let's change it to red. And yeah, we can already see the node preview, which is a red color, and we can output it. And whenever we change the color to something else, it's auto-updating. We don't have to compile, we don't have to save, we don't have to do anything. And I forgot to mention, but this is important. This is not a tutorial, okay? This is just a showcase that this feature exists. And it's more of an incentive for you to actually go and explore it. And I won't be actually teaching you everything you can do in this system. If you would like a video like that, well, comment down below and I might actually create something like this. But this is just a showcase. Like, it's just It's just a note from me saying that, hey, this is a texture graph, you probably don't know about this, so give it a go, and you might just like it. And in this video, I'm just gonna say what I discovered, what things are cool with it, what can you do, probably what can you experiment with, and just give it a shot after the video. What can we do next? Well, we can go through a palette and see what else can we add. And there are pretty cool nodes here, and they are look and feel quite modern, if you could say it like that. Because when we enter a normal material editor, let's just call it yes. When we go to the normal material editor, which is basically this output node, and actually it has been updated in 5.4 because we have some default values, and it's 0.5 in specular, 0.5 in roughness. So actually when we add a texture to this, parameter to the, let's say, text, and we use a texture, what could we use? Epic default, Epic Games logo, and we pin it to base color. Now it's kind of shiny, so yeah, you might want to change that. I kinda liked it better when it was defaulted to 0, but now it's 0.5 for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, if you want it to just be a straight texture, then yeah, you have to change it to 0. And the reason I opened this material editor is because palette. The material also has a palette, and in this palette is basically a standard categories and text that you can pick and kind of drag and drop, right? But it's kind of, well, oldie, if that word exists. This doesn't say a lot, right? And you kind of have to already know what some nodes do before you use them. And if we go to the texture graph, well, it's nicely colored because we have some colors for adjustments, for channels, filter. Well, this is just one filter, but probably more to come. We have some input nodes, math nodes, and whatever we pick, let's say it's a scalar, or maybe not, because it's it's super simple, but maybe let's pick what could we pick? If then else, maybe. Well, this node does look pretty much exactly the same as this node, but there is something about this node that just looks better, right? I don't know if you feel that. I don't know if you share my opinion, but it's just my opinion. You can fully disagree with me, but for me, very, very nice. And we can pick an operator, comparison type. So it has, I guess, some more features than this if. Kinda looks like it has more to it, right? Okay, so let's make a simple texture that we can have a parameter and see what can we do with it actually. One thing that we can do is some noise generated texture. So let's pick noise. Let's maybe change the noise type to Perlin. Seed is, well, basically just a seed, but maybe I want more frequency. What this does, I do not know. Oh, yeah, octaves. Yeah, I do want more octave because it feels more sharp. And yeah, just multiply it with color and pin it to output. And now we have a texture that is a colored noise, basically. And that color is a parameter, so we can change it to whatever we want. And yeah, this is our output texture. And one thing now that we can do, and we cannot really do with the material graph, the standard material graph, is exporting it to a normal texture file. We just output it, and yeah, this is our texture. We can change a parameter to something else. Maybe let's make a blue noise, save export, and it will just replace the output texture. And yeah, that's how we roll. And we can, of course, well, maybe not of course, but we can also use already existing materials if we wish in our material, in our texture graph. So we can take a material, we can take a material function. I just inputted material again, material function, and maybe we would like to get, what could we get? Radial something. We don't have radial. And here we have, I don't know, anything we want, variation, right? Variation param. We can then input any parameters that are exposed in that function, same in the normal material. If some parameters are exposed, so for example, this MES, we would like to use this material here. We input MES, and we have a texture input that we can just plug in and plug in to output. So we can just mix whatever we want, material functions, materials, apply math functions, have some vector parameters, texture parameters, other graphs even, if we wish. So let's just make a new graph, texture graph, TG maybe, how can we call it, second. So it's quite clear what it does. And we can maybe add a scalar, and that scalar will I don't know, I'm kind of, just winging it. Let's maybe pick a vector. So vector is going to be a parameter, and that vector will be multiplied by a constant, scalar that will be, 5. So anything we input here is just going to be multiplied by 5 and outputted. And then we can go back to this graph, go here, pick the other graph, and now we have an input and an output. So it basically works exactly like the material graph and the material functions, but instead is just a texture graph for using with textures. And additionally, we can also use materials and material functions. Moving on, one downside, of course, of the texture graph is that we can't use time nodes, because the texture cannot be animated if it's a texture, right? Because we kind of need to export it, bake it, whatever. It's just static. It has its downsides, it has its upsides, right? So depending on what is your use case, what do you want to do with the image you create, you might want to use either material or the texture graph. Texture graph if you want to export it and have it constant at the runtime, and use materials if you want something that is using a time node perhaps. Okay, so that's that. anything more interesting here that I can show you. Patterns, probably, a shape. We can generate shape and patterns if we wish. That's pretty cool. Patterns is, well, a square, a circle, checker, a gradient if we want. This is actually amazing because if we want to preview a node, for example, in the material, we kind of need to enable the preview node, and it's previewing. But here we just click a node and it's showing. Maybe we can actually enable this in the normal material editor. I don't actually know, but let's see. This is called 3D preview and node preview. What kind of previews can we have here? If we can have any previews. Let's try finding something. Preview. Scene settings. So just that. Not really something that interests are. So yeah, if you want to preview a node in the normal material editor, then you have to click the start previewing node. And in the texture graph, you just have two separate windows, one for the node and one for the whole object, which is, I think, very, very cool. And yeah, so moving on, we have that texture graph. And let's say we want to create a runtime texture, right? So we don't always want to export the texture and use it in other materials. Maybe we want to actually use it as a parameter. So we create that runtime dynamic texture and we input it as a parameter to other material that maybe wants to utilize a time function or something else. So let's add it to the m_es, and let's just remove anything that is not important right now. So it's just noise, blue noise. And and it crashed. I mean, it happens. This is the preview. This is the preview version of the engine. So it might crash from time to time. I hope it will load. There is no guarantee, but yeah, we are back. And let's open this again. What did we do? We did this, and I can't save it. Help. Okay, you know, beta experimental plugins are not... do not use them in the shipping products, please. Let's just create another texture graph. Let's call it perhaps TG final, because always the files that are working finally are called final, but then you kind of figure out that they are not working correctly. Then you can create a new final, which is called final, and you keep going, right? That's basically programming 101. Okay, so let's remake it. Color is color, linear color. Let's make it blue. Let's make a noise. I guess it's fine. I'm not gonna edit it too much. Now let's multiply it. And yeah, let's try saving it right now. Okay, it's saved. Nice. Probably there's something wrong with the link to the other texture graph, and maybe they will fix it in production. And let's go to MES. Let's remove this, and we have already a texture parameter called param2d, and the parameter 2d is called text. And yeah, to use it, maybe let's make a test actor that is going to be called BP TG test, maybe, why not? And in the TG test, I'm going to add a cube, just a simple cube. So it has a material. That material will be called MES. But we can, of course, change it at runtime. And that MES will take a parameter, the parameter that will be constructed here. Well, not exactly here, but this will be a texture graph that will be constructed at runtime in our graph. So let's first of all get the cube, create dynamic material instance from that. Yes. And let's save it. Let's save it to a DMI. And now, what do we want to do? We want to make a new variable that is called TG. And in TG, we want to change the variable type to texture graph. And that texture graph we can now take, and this texture graph actually has some nodes that we can use. So what can we do? Well, first of all, we can see that we can get and set all kinds of parameters, right? So color, scalar, settings, texture, whatever. And then we can either export the texture or render the texture. And if we want to actually pass that texture to our cube, then we actually want to do texture graph render. So let's do this node. Let's plug this on done. And this is basically an array of our outputs, right? So if we have multiple outputs, then this array will have multiple elements. So let's just get a copy and the first index, so index 0, because we don't have multiple outputs. And let's plug it to a texture parameter of our DMI. So let's just take this, set texture parameter value. Our parameter was called text, so let's call it the same and just plug this in. And well, this is not undone. This should be here because we first want to create the DMI, and when we actually render the texture graph, we want to set the texture parameter value of our material. And let's see if that works. This is our cube. This is the material, and on simulate we should be able to see our new texture. So let's see. Well, nothing happened because we didn't actually plug any texture graph to this. TG final, save compile, and yeah, our texture is working. It kind of generated at runtime when we wanted it to generate, and yeah, it's working quite nicely. And if we wanted to change a texture of that, color of that texture, we can just take this, set color parameter. The color parameter is called color. So just, type color. And let's change color to maybe a green, because green is also pretty cool. Let's save, play, and yeah, we have a green noise. Yay! So yeah, that's texture graph, and that's how you can use it in blueprints. And what can you do with it? I'm not actually sure yet, but it's looking quite nice. And I'm sure it will have its place in game development, but I am just not yet sure what that place will be, where it will be. So yeah, my one ask to you guys is just, have a go at it and write a comment down below what do you think this new texture graph can be used for? And if you have a nice idea to explore, maybe I will make a new video about it. So yeah, that's it from exploring. There is not that much else to check right here. One thing I wish they added is that indication if the node is a parameter or it's not a parameter, because you can't really see it right here. And if we change it to constant, then, well, it's just removed from the parameters. Maybe something changes? No, nothing changes. It's exactly the same. So maybe in 5.4 release version, it will be fixed. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something new, and see you next time. Bye bye.